A Goldman Sachs analyst earning $500,000 a year sits in his Manhattan apartment, staring at his bank account balance of $847. In 3 days, his mortgage payment will bounce. This isn't a story about one person's financial irresponsibility, but rather the new normal for America's top earners, where 40% of households earning over $500,000 annually now live paycheck to paycheck. What would have seemed impossible a decade ago has become statistical reality. These aren't struggling middle-class families, but doctors, lawyers, tech executives, and finance professionals who should be accumulating wealth effortlessly by any historical measure. Yet only 1/3 of this income bracket manages to contribute meaningfully toward retirement or long-term assets. The automatic pathway to generational wealth has transformed into a treadmill of consumption and debt. Even the most privileged workers find themselves one bad quarter away from financial crisis. The American elite is eating itself alive, and understanding why reveals something fundamentally broken about our entire economic system. There are roughly 60 million millionaires worldwide, a number that sounds impressively democratic until you examine the actual distribution. The top 1% of that already elite group controls nearly 1/3 of all millionaire wealth. This creates a hierarchy so steep that comparing the bottom and top resembles comparing different species rather than income brackets. A private equity analyst making $500,000 annually sits beside a general partner earning $100 million, who takes meetings with limited partners managing $50 billion family offices. Those family offices rank far below the Davos crowd playing with sovereign wealth fund money. This isn't just inequality, but a fractal pattern of dominance that repeats at every level, ensuring that no matter how high you climb, someone exponentially above you always exists. The psychological toll proves uniquely devastating because proximity breeds comparison. A factory worker doesn't measure himself against Jeff Bezos because they inhabit different universes. But a $500,000 earner absolutely measures himself against the $5 million earner 3 desks away, creating a class of people who are objectively wealthy by any standard, yet feel subjectively poor. Their reference group keeps expanding upward into territories of wealth they can observe but never reach. The result is perpetual dissatisfaction among those who should feel most secure. This dynamic creates the paradox of the anxious elite, people with resources beyond historical imagination, who nonetheless experience genuine economic desperation. A 2023 Nature study analyzing 72 million Facebook users uncovered something economists had suspected but never quantified at scale. People form friendships almost exclusively within their own socioeconomic band, creating networks that mirror rather than diversify their economic reality. This pattern holds true whether you're making $30,000 or $300,000 annually. For middle-income Americans, this creates a stable reference point where everyone struggles with similar problems like mortgage payments and car repairs. But for high earners clustered in elite professions, this homophily creates a uniquely destructive dynamic. When your entire social circle consists of people making $500,000 but somehow living in $15 million homes and vacationing in Aspen, the logical conclusion isn't that they're drowning in debt. The logical conclusion becomes that you're failing to keep up with what success should look like. Researchers call this phenomenon socioeconomic fractality, the tendency for wealth inequality to reproduce itself at every scale. Your colleague buys an F-150, and you want one too. But when your colleague charters a plane to Art Basel, you start researching fractional jet ownership. The spending arms race never ends because the finish line keeps moving forward. Unlike previous generations where geographical separation limited comparison, social media and workplace proximity ensure that ultra-rich lifestyles remain constantly visible to the merely rich. This creates aspiration without the means to fulfill it, a recipe for permanent dissatisfaction and escalating debt. Jobs paying $500,000 or more don't exist in Des Moines or Tulsa, but cluster in exactly 6 metropolitan areas. Silicon Valley, Manhattan, Seattle, Boston, Miami, and Los Angeles represent the most expensive real estate markets in human history. A normal family home in these markets runs $2 million minimum, anything resembling luxury starting at $5 million. A Stanford-educated software engineer earning $600,000 in total compensation faces brutal mathematics. After federal taxes at 37%, California state taxes at 13%, Social Security and Medicare, she takes home roughly $320,000. A mortgage on a modest $1.8 million Palo Alto home costs $11,000 monthly, with property taxes adding $2,000 and homeowner's insurance another $800. Before buying groceries, paying for childcare, or contributing to retirement, she spent $166,000 of post-tax income on housing alone. Add 2 car payments, private school tuition, and rising health insurance premiums, and that $600,000 salary delivers a lifestyle roughly equivalent to what $75,000 provided in 1985. The cruelest irony is that leaving these expensive cities means leaving the jobs that make such salaries possible, creating an inescapable trap. High earners must pay premium prices simply to access premium employment. The geographic concentration of elite jobs has created local economies so expensive that even top percentile incomes provide only middle-class purchasing power. This represents a fundamental shift from the 20th century model, where professional credentials guaranteed comfortable lives regardless of location. Doctors spend a decade in medical training and accumulate $300,000 in student debt, only to discover their education included 0 hours on personal finance. A 2024 BAJ study found that fewer than 15% of practicing physicians could correctly explain the difference between traditional and Roth IRAs. Nearly 40% had never calculated their own net worth, despite managing 7-figure incomes. Lawyers face similar knowledge gaps despite spending years studying contracts and financial instruments in abstract legal contexts. The pattern repeats across elite professions, with extensive education in specialized domains, but complete ignorance of practical financial management. This illiteracy creates vulnerability to a particularly insidious psychological trap, where years of deferred gratification during training become permission for reckless spending. A newly minted physician making $400,000 thinks, "I've sacrificed enough, I deserve this," while signing a luxury SUV lease and a mortgage consuming 45% of gross income. Because these professionals accumulated massive educational debts, they've become psychologically normalized to debt in general. A $100,000 car loan or $2 million mortgage feels like just another line item rather than potential catastrophe. They're running endgame economic content with tutorial-level financial skills, and the mismatch proves devastating. The very education that grants access to high incomes simultaneously creates blind spots that prevent wealth accumulation. Intelligence in one domain provides no protection against ignorance in another, especially when that ignorance feels like earned reward. The assumption that people working in finance must be good with money contains a fatal flaw in its logic. Financial expertise is domain-specific, and managing investment portfolios differs radically from managing personal finances. Investment bankers who model $10 billion mergers routinely carry $50,000 in credit card debt at 24% interest. Hedge fund analysts who spot market inefficiencies worth millions somehow miss the inefficiency of paying $8,000 monthly for leased vehicles that depreciate 60% in 3 years. The explanation isn't stupidity, but social pressure within a culture of conspicuous consumption. When everyone in your office drives luxury vehicles, wears bespoke suits, and vacations in St. Bart's, maintaining normal middle-class lifestyle feels like professional suicide. A 31-year-old Goldman Sachs associate explained it perfectly in a viral post that captured the paradox. "I make $450,000 and I'm broke, because if I show up to client dinners in a Honda Civic while colleagues drive Porsches, I signal that I'm not successful, which means I won't be successful." The fixed costs of maintaining this lifestyle create a baseline burn rate so high that any disruption triggers immediate crisis. A bad bonus year, a job loss, or market downturn affecting deferred compensation can unravel everything, despite earning more annually than most Americans earn in a decade. The finance industry has created an environment where the skills that generate income actively work against the skills that preserve it, trapping even the most sophisticated financial minds in cycles of high-income poverty. For decades, corporations extracted maximum value from middle and lower-income consumers through credit cards, subprime auto loans, and inflated rents. That well has run dry, as the bottom 80% of American households now carry record debt levels, while experiencing real wage stagnation. Corporate growth needed a new frontier, and found it in the top 10% of earners. The luxury market has exploded in ways that would have seemed impossible in 2010, with over 100 car models now priced above $100,000, compared to just 30 in 2015. Private membership clubs charging $50,000 to $200,000 annually have proliferated in every major city. Hotels created new tiers above 5-star, with suites running $10,000 per night, marketed as accessible luxury. Airlines now offer first-class cabins costing more than entire vacations used to, with American Airlines flagship First commanding $15,000 for New York to London round trips. Even grocery stores have segmented upward, with Iruhan in Los Angeles selling $20 smoothies to clientele who wouldn't shop at Whole Foods. Credit card companies launched ultra-premium cards with $5,000 annual fees, targeting households earning over $500,000. The system has created a perfectly enclosed ecosystem designed to convince high earners that their income level requires a specific consumption level. That consumption level has been precisely calibrated to ensure they never accumulate wealth despite massive incomes. The luxury economy doesn't exist to serve the wealthy, but to extract wealth from high earners before they can convert income into assets. The most fundamental shift in American economics over the past 20 years isn't about income inequality, but the divergence between income and wealth. Asset price appreciation has completely decoupled from wage growth, creating parallel economies that barely interact. A doctor earning $400,000 annually can save $100,000 per year if living extremely frugally, accumulating $3 million over 30 years before investment returns. Meanwhile, someone who inherited a $2 million Palo Alto home in 1995 now owns an $8 million asset without effort, and that appreciation remains entirely tax-free until sale. The person who earns through labor gets taxed at 40% or more, while the person who gains through appreciation pays 0 until realization, and then only 20% on long-term capital gains. This structural advantage means high-income earners cannot catch the top 1% by wealth, even when they are top 1% by income. The wealth threshold sits at roughly $12 million in net worth, while the income threshold is only $500,000 annually. A person earning $500,000 who saves 20% annually would need 120 years to reach wealth percentile status without investment returns. The game has fundamentally changed from work hard and get rich to already be rich or you'll never get there. High-income professionals are discovering that their credentials and paychecks, once guaranteed tickets to generational wealth, now merely grant access to a nicer version of the same treadmill everyone else runs. The American dream hasn't disappeared, but has been restructured so that labor, no matter how well compensated, cannot compete with inherited capital in building lasting wealth. Before shedding tears for the paycheck-to-paycheck private equity analyst, we should acknowledge that his financial stress differs fundamentally from actual poverty. Yes, he has $800 in checking, but he also has $400,000 in vested stock options, $200,000 in his 401k, and a $2.5 million home that accumulates equity with every mortgage payment. In 30 years, assuming he doesn't get fired or divorced, he'll own that home outright and possess retirement accounts worth $5 million or more. His children will inherit assets, granting them structural advantages no amount of hard work can replicate. The high-income professional living paycheck to paycheck faces cash flow problems, not wealth problems. He can't afford an unexpected $20,000 expense without scrambling, but he has access to credit lines, home equity loans, and emergency liquidity options unavailable to actual poor people. His company provides disability insurance, life insurance, and health insurance, shielding his family from catastrophic risks that destroy working-class households. Most importantly, his income itself represents a form of wealth because it's stable, recurring, and typically grows over time. Even if he makes terrible financial decisions in his 30s, he can usually correct course in his 40s, a luxury unavailable to someone earning $50,000. The stress is real and the pressure genuine, but calling it bankruptcy misses the point entirely. These people have safety nets layered upon safety nets that they've simply chosen to ignore in pursuit of lifestyle maintenance. Their struggle is real to them, but exists in a different universe from the struggle of actual financial precarity. The financial implosion of America's top earners would be darkly comedic if it didn't reveal something more sinister about our economic system's evolution. The reason high-income professionals face increasing financial pressure isn't because they suddenly became stupid or reckless, but because the economy has completely exhausted the spending capacity of everyone below them. Walmart's recent earnings report explicitly credited sales growth to upper-income households trading down, a polite euphemism meaning regular people are so broke that even discount retailers now depend on the affluent for growth. The system has squeezed the bottom 80% until nothing remains to extract, so it moved to the top 20%, then the top 10%, and now the top 5%. We're watching a consumption hierarchy collapse upward where each tier gets strip-mined until depleted. Then the machine moves to the next tier. The difference is that when it finishes with the 1%, they'll mostly survive because they have assets, options, and safety nets that the rest of us lack. When the economy decides it doesn't need your spending anymore, when companies stop marketing to your income bracket because you have nothing left to give, you don't get a second act. Understanding this mechanism isn't pessimism, but survival strategy for an economic system that has fundamentally changed its rules. The game has shifted, and pretending it hasn't won't protect anyone from the consequences of that transformation. If this analysis of how America's elite are cannibalizing themselves opened your eyes, hit that subscribe button because what's coming next will hit even closer to home. We're going deep into the mechanics of how ordinary middle-class families are being systematically dismantled by the same forces crushing the top 10%, except without any of the safety nets. Next week, we're exposing the hidden tax system that's bleeding dry everyone earning under $150,000, a system so perfectly designed that most people don't even realize they're being robbed until it's too late. Drop a like if you want to understand the real game being played with your financial future. The algorithm needs to know that people are ready for the truth about where this economy is actually heading. And here's the uncomfortable reality. If the 1% are struggling despite every structural advantage, what chance do the rest of us have without understanding exactly how this extraction machine operates? Comment below with your income bracket and your biggest financial fear right now. Let's build a community that sees through the lies we've been sold about hard work and success. The next episode reveals which industries are next on the chopping block and which cities will become economically uninhabitable by 2030. You won't want to miss it, because your future depends on knowing what's coming before it arrives.